It's time to go back to the past. Again! While visiting the newly opened Past-O-Rama theme park, the Planet Express crew find themselves crashing into a pedestrian. As they rush out to make sure they're all right, they discover it's a robot and a nearly exact twin of Bender. He introduces himself as Flexo, and as they're the same model with similar personalities, he and Bender become fast friends. Fry, however, is suspicious, believing Flexo may be some sort of evil twin. Shortly thereafter, Planet Express is hired to transport an extremely rare and valuable atom of Jambonia to Toba 9 for the Miss Universe pageant. Due to the nature of the job, the professor decides to hire on additional security, and Flexo is brought on board. But all does not go smoothly, as by the time they land, the atom has been stolen, and Flexo is nowhere to be found. Fry sees through the wily robot's deceptions, realizing he had no opportunity to escape, and must have disguised himself as Bender. He craftily unmasks the faker, only to realize that his theory was wrong. It is actually just Bender, and Flexo is no longer on the ship. With no other choice, Fry, Leela, and Bender go to inform the pageant host Bob Barker of the theft. It's then that they spy Flexo, and a fight scene ensues between the two robots. During the scuffle, Bender's chest cavity is knocked open, revealing that he is the one who stole the atom. Flexo saw him do it, and left as soon as they landed to tell Bob Barker. The atom is recovered, but another identity mix-up leads to Flexo being arrested in Bender's place. Meanwhile, as the new Miss Universe is crowned and awarded the atom, Fry reflects on recent events. Flexo, whom he believed to be evil, was actually good, while Bender, whom he believed to be good, was actually evil. He ponders aloud about how he can go on living when he can't tell good from evil, but his dear friend Bender reassures him that he'll be fine regardless. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past.
Right, so, cop department.
Ugh.
I mean, I do like the gag of the centipede alien's blurred face being a camouflage thing and not, just done in editing.
Just, post-production, yeah.
But, yeah fuck 12.
I have a question about the arachnospores. Okay, they're deadly, they have a funny name, but what do they do? Like, how do they kill you?
They're deadly.
They shoot out little spider spores. Maybe it's kind of like silly string, but deadly.
I want answers.
It's a very good question. Anyway, so...
Yeah, cop department, that's obviously a takeoff of Cops, which of course Fox was extremely well known for at the... And Cops ran for, 20 years easily.
It was a long runner, yeah.
And it was one of the early kind of forerunners of reality TV before it was even a thing, reality TV as a major genre. It was one of the early forerunners, so much so that it wasn't even called reality TV. It was just kind of a documentary series.
Yeah. I mean, still, fuck Cops, but,
Oh yeah, of course. At this point, yeah.
I've noticed that there's a running gag of Leela saying, "But Bender, you are a..." and whatever Bender just described something being.
I never noticed that being a thing that happened a bunch of times, but...
It's happened a handful of times.
You're right.
It does seem like the kind of thing Bender would say, because he is very self-centered, but also not very self-aware.
So, moving into the meat of the episode beyond the cold open, Past-O-Rama is, of just a very Disney theme park history.
Oh yeah, it honestly seems very similar to the series Has Landed, where they travel to this sort of revisionist vision of the past. But in this case, is more so, it's not revisionist so much as they just got it wrong.
I liked a lot of the gags there, all the references to, modern day New York.
I'm reminded of the Prairie Bible Fellowship comic where they look at they're looking at this movie about World War II, but it's like the year 4000. So like all the details are wrong.
Perrywood Bible Fellowship. Didn't the guy who made that turn out to be just a complete piece of garbage?
I have no idea if Nicholas Gurewitch is a milkshake duck or not.
Yeah, I remember before that was even a term, I remember reading about him being just kind of not great. I don't remember what the exact context was now. It was so long ago.
Well, regardless, it's still a funny comic.
I suppose. But Pastorama actually gives me very Freedomland USA vibes. Well, okay, I should probably explain. Freedomland USA was a very short-lived theme park in New York in the 1960s. I think it was only operational for like 5 years or so, but it was very much built around the whole, presenting the history of the United States thing, but it was a very infamously whitewashed presentation of it.
Not surprised.
So it was basically a theme park version of BioShock Infinite.
That's actually a pretty apt description of what it was, yeah.
I wonder if that was one of the inspirations for Infinite. I would not be surprised.
It might have been. Of course, alternatively, Pastorama could also just be more like, depictions of the Knights of the Round Table in the movies wearing full plate when plate armor had not been invented yet at the time King Arthur supposedly would have lived.
Right.
Yeah, it is a lot of, Ren Fair sort of.
Yeah, well, even down to the fact that they're kind of blending all these different eras. They have, the early Renaissance mixed with the late 2000s.
Yeah, it's just all of this stuff, when you get far enough out, it starts to look interchangeable, these different eras of the past.
And they have the idea of the primitive robots, which is like robot cavemen. And it's like, no, they would be like robot arms, but they wouldn't actually, they would be assembled by, robot arms in an assembly line, but they wouldn't be primitive robots with like caveman garb and everything, which is just a hilarious concept to me.
There's actually a background gag from this scene that I really love. The movie theater, on the marquee, it says Star Wars 9, Yoda's Bar Mitzvah.
And there actually is a Star Wars 9 now.
Yeah, I think I'd rather watch Yoda's Bar Mitzvah than The Rise of Skywalker, honestly.
Yeah.
Yoda's Bar Mitzvah, that's basically The Mandalorian.
Oh my god, TZ. I mean, The Mandalorian would be more like Yoda's bris, let's be fair.
Disclaimer, we know it's not actually Yoda.
They got the Robockets.
What?
Robot rockets.
Yeah, the Robockets.
Yes, they were great too. There were a lot of fantastic jokes in this scene.
There's that really old joke about nobody in New York drives, there's too much traffic, which is like, it's such an obvious one-liner, but...
I mean, no one goes there anymore, it's too crowded.
Exactly.
I mean, you can get around a lot of New York without having to drive.
Oh, sure, but that's, exclusive to, really big cities in the United States. We did not really design most of our cities to be walkable.
Mm.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
No,
New York City and maybe LA would be walkable. I guess Boston, but I'm from a city in Connecticut. I'm in New Haven, and only bits of the city are really walkable.
We have a decent public transit system in LA, but many times you will just have to get an Uber or something to go if you want to avoid all the hassle. It's expensive, but it gets you where you need to go.
Yeah, it's very different from how a lot of cities in Europe are built.
Well, they never had the automobile lobby basically pressuring cities into being changed and also buying up and dismantling various public transit systems.
That is correct.
Yes. As seen in the documentary Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I mean, there was also an episode of Adam Ruins Everything about this.
Yep.
So this was also the first appearance of Flexo, who would become an occasionally recurring character.
Yeah, which, I mean, one of my least I've said this on Twitter, one of my least favorite tropes is, literally the protagonist but evil. So, especially if it's, the exact same character design. You look at characters like Dark Ryu, Violent Ken, Dark Pit, Dark Link, and this is basically Dark Bender. But they do play with the trope. They have the idea that he has the goatee, which is going back to Star Trek, which is you look at the evil parallel universe, and you have the evil versions of the goatee, which is funny. And I decided if I ever introduced an evil version of myself into my reviews, he would have no goatee.
Ha. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned, Dark Link, but that you didn't mention anything from Samus, because she has had 2 evil versions of herself.
Yeah, Dark Samus, and then the SAX, and...
Yeah, I made a joke on Twitter once of Samus going, if I had a nickel for every time an alien turned into an evil copy of me that I then had to kill, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. I haven't even watched Phineas and Ferb, but I love that meme.
We should watch Phineas
meme.
and Ferb, like, seriously.
I should.
I believe it's on Disney Plus.
I don't have Disney Plus.
Oh, well, moot point then.
Neither do I, but my friend shared theirs. And I could go into more detail, but Dark Pit isn't evil. He's technically neutral.
I know, but it's the same character, just with a different color, which is like, I just designed a new character. I like character designs. I'm that kind of person that likes to see interesting character designs. But I'm okay. I'm sort of okay with it in this episode. Honestly, I found a lot of this episode kind of boring because you already knew exactly what the joke was going to be.
Yeah, it is kind of an obvious gag.
It's like that Simpsons episode with Hugo. It's like, wait, Bart was the evil twin this whole time? It's like, don't be so shocked.
Well, I mean, it literally ends with Fry saying, I'm shocked. Well, not that shocked.
Which is the source of that meme. We got the other meme here with, like, the Fry is, like, not sure Bender or Flexo.
Suspicious
Fry.
But yeah, it's interesting that Bender mentions that his and Flexo's serial numbers are both expressible as the sum of 2 cubes. I'm not nearly good enough at math to check that, so I'm just going to assume it's correct.
I wish Bender's personality had more math and technology jokes, but he's way too lowbrow for that to find that sort of thing amusing.
I'd love more tech jokes.
Well, what's interesting is I remember reading about with the serial numbers mentioned in this episode. Apparently, like several seasons later, there was actually a scene that was written out, but ultimately cut, that would have shown Bender's serial number, and it would have actually been Flexo's serial number from this episode. With the idea being that it was like a subtle background joke that Flexo had like stolen Bender's life at some point in the intervening seasons, but they ended up cutting this.
That's interesting. So they had these plans, and you do see this a lot in particularly Groening productions, but you see this in a lot of general cartoons where they have these ideas that don't end up going to anything, but at least they kind of set the seeds for it.
Well, I don't think this was intentional setting of the seed. I think that was more, let's do this as a subtle callback joke for people who remember that.
Speaking of subtle callback jokes, you have the Crushinator in this episode.
Yes, the triumphant return of the Crushinator.
Which, again, looking at the whole concept of revisionist history, this is pretty much just a direct sequel to that episode.
I like that robots have an appreciation for big girls.
Oh, they're very powerful.
I mean, I am a larger woman myself. I am like 6 feet tall, so yeah.
As long as you don't appreciate the exhaust fan.
Pervert. But seriously, at the Robot Strip Club, this Robot Strip Club bothers me. Why would you build robot strippers? I mean, I'm still confused why you would need to build robots so aggressively gendered to begin with, but robot strippers in particular, why?
I mean, that way you don't have to use human strippers. I mean, I'm sure they still exist, but...
Well, and now it's just taking the job from an innocent, hardworking stripper.
I mean, at least the robot strippers have some really creative designs. Like, I really like the one with the spinning gear waist thing. That's
right,
very clever.
Kind of able to dance around the pole like that.
On that same note, though, I don't find the professor's whole private exhibition gag very funny. And, like, unlike most of the other uncomfortable jokes on the show because, there have been other, like, sex jokes or gross jokes that I pointed out where I'm like, I don't like this. But for the most part, those just come and go very quickly. This one just keeps going, and it really drags.
I like the fact that he has a little floating Planet Express ship.
Yeah, that I like. That was cute.
Yeah, that little bath toy. Is that custom made?
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe his ship is part of a manufacturer thing, and he just kind of got it. Why are we dwelling on this so much?
I don't know, but it's a cute little detail.
Mm-hmm.
Also, There is one punchline in this episode that I do really love. It's a very obvious joke, but I like the execution where you have Flexo wearing all of that stuff like the scarf and the turtleneck to hide his goatee while pretending to be Bender, and then Fry rips it off and it's just Bender.
Well, it's like it's called fashion. Look it up.
Yeah.
He's got an ascot.
No, Bender actually looks surprisingly good with an ascot.
Yeah.
Right.
I noticed on the sign for the Miss America pageant, it said
Miss Universe, yeah.
Miss Universe, yes. It's Miss Universe now. May not exceed 50% implant, which I'm gonna ignore the, more offensive implications and go for they allow robots into the competition, so I don't understand why artificial body parts don't have I don't understand why artificial body parts would have a limit.
Well, I suppose it's similar to performance-enhancing drugs in athletes.
Yeah, speaking of the contestants, I do love the background gag of one of them wearing the sash where she's Miss Arrakis.
Oh, I didn't notice that one, but that's cool.
But yeah, Miss Arrakis. Arrakis, for any of our listeners who might not know, is the planet from the famous Dune novels.
I like the one that said Miss Demeanor.
Yes.
They had Miss Heaven. Heaven isn't exactly a planet. Or is it here?
It probably is, and because it does have this, nebulous thing, but I also like the fact that, demeanor is a thing that someone would be rated in, they'd be Miss Congeniality, or they'd be, Miss Demeanor, but it's also, a crime, which is a good play on words. You have Bob Barker judging it, so you have to have the obvious Bob Barker jokes, so they're guessing the value of the atom, but if you're paying attention to the earlier part of the episode, they did reveal the value of the Jumbonium atom.
Yeah.
$150,000.
They didn't say how much it was worth when added to the tiara, though, because that would likely add a little bit of value that it's, the one used in the competition,
Yeah.
But didn't he say that the tiara itself was basically worthless?
I know, but it's you combine these things and it's worth something because it's a collector's piece.
Yeah. It's more, I guess, I can't think of the exact description, but because it's, a trophy for a big competition, it has that sort of artificial value.
Right,
Yeah,
it has an intrinsic value in the fact that it's memorabilia now. It's a collector's piece.
Yeah. That's a pretty talented jellyfish, for being a brainless invertebrate.
Performing a traditional gangster rap, which, really is just kind of beatboxing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they introduced her with a gangster rap and then she's just beatboxing. Which, either way, some talent for a jellyfish.
Talent for anyone, really. Shoutouts to Biz Marquis.
And at the end of the episode, you have, Fry asking, how can I live my life if I can't tell good from evil? I mean, if modern election numbers are anything to judge by, a lot of people appear to have that issue, and, they seem fine.
Yeah, you just look at morality, everybody's always had that issue of telling good from evil, especially in themselves.
Yeah, certain things can be subjective as well.
It's true.
Yeah, some things, not everything.
I guess the last thing I wanted to bring up, Zap singing that Miss Universe song at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Does Miss Vega 4 use its pronouns?
Maybe. I mean, Zap isn't exactly the kind of person I'd expect her to respect someone's pronouns, but maybe.
I mean, it's the year 3000, maybe.
Or it could just be that the song itself is designed around being as universal as possible, pardon the pun, that many of these aliens may not have traditional gendered roles anyway, so why they're participating in a Miss Universe pageant if they don't qualify as one or the other, who cares? Maybe they're being they're just being inclusive. It's it is Miss Universe.
Zap Brannigan, gender identity respecter.
Even a broken clock is right once a day, twice a day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that we haven't run into any aliens yet that use, neo-pronouns or anything.
Well, that is a fairly recent development. Let's say this show was produced in the early 2000s.
I know, but, it's science fiction. You could, very easily come up with, ways to drive home a species being alien, not having traditional genders or whatever else.
Which they do in later episodes that you have other feelings about, but it was not a common discourse at the time. And of course, sci-fi is always a reflection of the time it was made.
Yeah.
Which is one of the big problems of watching this series and analyzing it in 2020 was it's yeah, a lot of this stuff does not hold up, but you can't really fault the series for that. It's just different changing times.
Yeah. And it's first and foremost, a comedy. It's not really going as in-depth into the sci-fi aspect as other shows might.
Exactly, and when it does go into the sci-fi, it's usually really fun, because it's really creative sci-fi, especially when you're able to do those really interesting visuals, because it's an animated series,
So, I think this is kind of a decent episode, not fantastic, but, there have definitely been worse up to this point.
Yeah, it is. I feel it is one of the weaker episodes of the season. It's not bad, but it is a bit of a slow episode because they kind of build up these jokes and then they really kind of drag them out, like them waiting to guard the safe. Like it just feels like these scenes go on for a little bit longer than they should.
Yeah, it's simple. It's got some good jokes, but overall, it's just not a big episode.
But yeah, you do have Flexo. He kind of claims that he'll be back, and he really does kind of get shafted in this episode because he didn't do anything wrong, but he's like, yeah, he looks close enough to that robot. It's like, I guess all robots look the same to him. To be fair, yes, it is literally the same robot unit.
He'll be back.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your three voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/spacepod3k. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early on patreon.com/spacepod3k. Follow us on Twitter at spacepod3k. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew experience office romance and Put Your Head on My Shoulders.